More titles, generators, transitions, and effects for everyone. Yes, Davinci Resolve 19 brings some new additions to its effects library. Plus, a handful, I think there's 2, of the effects which were limited to the studio-only version within Davinci Resolve are now available within the free version as well. So, good news for everyone. In this video, we're just going to jump in, have a casual quick look at some of these new additions that are available to everyone in the effects library within Davinci Resolve 19. Oh, and super quick, before we begin, if you're having the issue where none of the new stuff actually works, you just get a black screen, I had a quick look on the forum. There is apparently a fix for this. I believe this is for Windows only, so what you want to do, open up the C drive, go to your program files, open up the Blackmagic Design folder, then go to Davinci Resolve, then you want to find Fusion, then you go to Templates, and there's a templates.drfx. If you double click, Davinci Resolve will prompt, do you want to install these templates? Click install, and that should hopefully fix your issue. Now, only do that if some of the new stuff isn't working for you. Otherwise, skip that bit. You don't need to worry about it. So, with that out of the way, let's open up the edit page in Davinci Resolve 19 and have a little play. And we're going to start off with transitions. So here we are on the edit page. Now, the first thing we need to do, of course, is open up the effects library, top left-hand corner, and then we're going to go to video transitions. Now, all of the main transitions, so, you know, these additive dissolves, blurs, dissolves, irises, motions, shapes, all that sort of stuff, none of that has changed all that much. The new additions are down here within the Fusion Transitions area. And the first one we've got, Box Twist. So we're going to grab Box Twist, we'll shove it on our edit point. Let's zoom in a little bit and have a quick look. And it's got this kind of funky looking zoom out, twist, block kind of transition. If we give it a click in the inspector, we've got a few controls. We can increase the number of twists, make it a bit more twisty. We can change the amount of zoom out, like so. Or if we prefer, we can have it to zoom in and do the little twist instead. And then we can also disable and enable the lighting. So it goes a bit darker. We can change that if we want to. Now, while that's kind of a cool looking transition, I don't know how often you'd use it. One thing that does show is they are putting more effort into these transitions. That's quite nicely animated. It looks quite smooth. So hopefully they continue this trend by adding some more and more funky little transitions for everyone to use. Right underneath that, we've got the next one, Box Wipe. We'll just plonk that on there. And this one has this nice little box, kind of whip, push transitioning thing. It's got a colored border and it's also got a blurred area. And once again, in the inspector, we've got some position controls. We can have it to come from the top, the bottom, the center, or we can set our own custom positions. We can then change the border width and the gradient, as well as the blur amount as well. So that's a nice little addition. Keep scrolling down. We've got one called Checker Wipe, which I quite like, actually. It's this funky little wipe effect with all these little checker animation thingies. We can change the size, we can change the angle, and we can change the texture, as well as, of course, changing the width, the gradient, the colors, and the blur amount. The next one is called Disarrange. Now, this is another example of them doing something really quite creative. This one does this little spin kind of transition-y thing, but there's loads of displacement going on as well. And this is a really funky kind of transition. Again, it's kind of niche. I don't know how often I'd use it. It'd be cool for some music videos or something. Again, in the inspector, we can toggle on and off the texture. We can change the shape of the texture as well as the displacement scaling. So we can have it kind of really minimal or really aggressive. We can also change the direction of the camera. So we can go to vertical, so it does like a little vertical wipe instead. We can change the offsets, the background color, and the glow, and even the transition curve. So again, it's a funky one to have a little play with. Elastic rubber gives us this nice little boing sort of thing. Quite a bit further down, we've got page curl. People have been asking me to do page curl transitions for some time. I never got around to it. Now I don't really need to, unless I do like a whole pack, because there is a page curl transition built directly in to Davinci Resolve. Now, the only thing I don't like about this one is it kind of comes in a bit early. It jumps in. It needs to start curling from outside of the frame, ideally, but minor thing, really. You can change the curl angle, the roll amount, as well as the shading softness, and the shading color. So again, you can have a little play with that one to get it looking however you like. But again, it's a nicely animated little transition. Pop Wobble just has this little bounce. It's nothing too fancy with this one. It just sort of boings in and bounces. There's one called Shash, which isn't new. I just like saying shash. Shash, shash. And then I think the last new one is called V-Wipe. So we can just plonk that one on there, and it's this little V-Wipe effect. Again, you can change the width, the gradient, colors, the blur size, all that sort of stuff. So there you go, that kind of the new transitions in 19. Now, because these are all Fusion transitions, it's really handy to know that you can do two quick little things. The first one being, any of these transitions, if you give them a click within the inspector where you've got all of your controls, top right hand corner, there's this magic wand icon, give that a click, and that'll jump you directly into Fusion. And because Blackmagic are kind souls, they've left these nice and open. So you can open any of these transitions and have a look at how they're made. This is actually a slightly complicated one. There's quite a bit going on there. But you can come in, you can see exactly what's been done to create this transition. And if you wanted to, you could even customize it further from using this V-Wipe kind of as a little template. Now, what you can also do, if you've made any changes, so let's just customize this one a little bit, change some of the colors, do some funky stuff to it. We can simply right-click the transition on the timeline. We can create a new transition preset. I'll call this one V-Wipe Alex. Okay, I can delete that. And then from within the transitions area, if we scroll up, there is a user area. I've got my V-Wipe Alex, and now that transition is saved with all of my custom changes. Transitions. Next up, titles. Now, I'll be honest, I don't use many of the templates that are built into Davinci Resolve for my titles. I use the ones from MotionVFX, who we'll talk about in a moment. So, same place, effects library, titles, right at the top. We've got all of our standard ones, we'll ignore those. And then we've got our Fusion titles, and they are within here. Now, as mentioned, I might miss some of these because I don't use them all that often. But this one's a new one. It's simply called Comic Title, and it's just a really simple comic style effect. If we give it a click, again, in the inspector, we've got all of the controls. Now, this one is actually a really simple text plus. There's nothing fancy going on with this one. But if you jump over to the shading tab, you can see all of the different outlines, the shadows, the depth, all of the different kind of layers they've added to create this. So this is quite a nice one to have a little play with, have a little look at these shading options to see how it was designed. Now, it doesn't animate in or out, so it's a good time to let you know that all of the video transitions also work on titles. So if you grab one of the video transitions, any of them, I'm going to go with this elastic rubber, boing, we can apply that transition effect to this title instead. So that's an option for you. Next up, we've got this one called Elegant Shadow. Now, this is completely new in Resolve because I don't think they've ever done kind of a title screen animation before. And it's quite nice. Once again, just says sample. We can open up the inspector, change this to be MrAlexTech, change the font, change all of the stuff that we need to change within here. There's also animation controls for the sphere itself. And then you've just got this nice little animation like so. Once again, this one just pops out at the end, so you'd probably want to grab a transition to kind of put a transition on the outside of it, or you could kind of just fade it out like so. You've got loads of options, but it's a nice little addition once again. We've got another one here called Headline. Once again, this is very similar to the comic-y style one. So jump into the shading and you can have a look and see how that one is made. We've got a nice neon flicker. I do like a nice little neon effect, so that one's pretty cool. Now we've got another called Outline Repeat. This one animates in, and it's got all the words kind of repeating up and down. Again, it doesn't animate out, so you'd maybe want to use the transition or a fade on the back end of that one. We've got one here called Retro Chrome. We've got a ribbon text. Not too sure if they're new, but they're there. And then we've got another simple one here called Superhero. And again, open up the inspector. All of the controls are there. And just like the transitions, you can jump into the Fusion page at any time to have a mess around with the template and do any new stuff, any additional bits that you want to do. Now, you can't right-click and save these, but what you can do is pop these into PowerBins. You can grab them out of a PowerBin in any future project and they'll be ready to go. If you don't know what I'm talking about when I say PowerBins, I've linked a video somewhere where I talk about PowerBins, so you can go and check that out. Now, if that stuff isn't enough, you should definitely check out this video sponsor, MotionVFX. I use them all of the time in my videos. They massively speed up my workflow and they just look really good. Whether I'm doing these educational style videos or whether I'm doing my more tech focused videos as well. The M Product and M Review plugins are my two go-to favorites. M Review has 80 plus presets that are perfect for reviews, tutorials and educational videos, while M Product has 60 plus clean, minimalistic presets that are perfect for showcasing any project. But MotionVFX have plugins that cover pretty much any niche, any topic you can think of. From dining and catering presets with that M Dining plugin, to cinematic tension building effects in that M Drama plugin. Fully compatible with Davinci Resolve 19, both free and studio, and they'll even work on the iPad because there's a dedicated M Installer app which you can download and manage all of your installations from there. So to check them out, to get started, click on the link down in the description below. Right, next up, we're going to talk about generators. So effects library, this time we're going to generators. Now the top ones, again, not much has changed with those, but once you get down to the fusion generators, there's two really quite cool additions. The first one is the comic speed lines. So as a generator, you just pop this directly on your timeline, and if we hit play, once again, we've got this pretty funky looking animation. Give it a click. In the inspector, we can change the speed, the texture, the line separation, the stretch, the angle, as well as, of course, changing the gradient and the color. Once again, there's no animation in or out, but of course, video transitions do of course work on generators, so we can pop one of those on there and animate them in like that instead. The next one is called Vintage Texture. And again, this one's quite cool. You could use this as a nice little background for sort of like some cinematic titles or whatever else. It's got like a paper texture on there with some grain and some dust and all that sort of stuff. And in the inspector, we can change the animation scale, the texture sizing, the angle. We can change it to be a light or a dark texture, as well as changing the flicker amount. Once again, no in and out, but animate it with transitions and you'll be good to go. Now, as mentioned, you could use this as kind of a background, or you could use this as an overlay. So if we give it a click in the inspector, rather than being on the generator tab, go over to the settings tab, come down to the composite area, and you can change the composite to something like, I don't know, let's go with screen, put it over this drone footage here, and you've got yourself a little overlay like so. It's pretty cool. Underneath that, we have a bunch of stinger transitions. Now, stinger transitions work by covering up the footage. So you don't apply them on the edit point, you apply them above the edit point, and then they animate in, cover that little point so you can't actually see the little transition happening, and then they fade away so you can hide cuts that way. Again, there's a bunch of really nice ones within here. They're nicely animated. Once again, we've got all of the controls. We can change the text. We could even import our own custom logo instead if we wanted to, change all the colors, and do whatever we want. We can't save these once again by right-clicking, but we can drop them into POWERBINS so you can build up your own collection like that. This blobs one's nice. This broadcast one is kind of cool if you're into kind of a newsy kind of thing. There's one called circles. Circles scale out. There's a generic. There's a fold wipe. There's a radial shape. There's round. There's loads of funky additions in there for you to have a play with. Now, yes, you can get those out if you want to with alpha channels so that you can use them as stinger transitions within OBS, which is a really popular means to use stinger transitions if you're streaming on Twitch or whatever. I made a video talking about how to do that previously, so I'll link it down below for you to go check out if you want to. And last but not least, let's talk effects. Under generators, we've got effects. There's not too many of these. We've got our usual adjustment clips and comps at the top, but then we've got these fusion effects. So we've got a binoculars, and we just drop that on our footage directly, or we could drop it onto an adjustment clip if we prefer. We give it a click. In the inspector, we've got all of the controls, and it looks a little something like that. Now, previously, things like CCTV, and I think it was the drone overlay, were limited to the studio version only because of the type of grain they were using, the kind of the noise. They've changed that around, so all of these now work on the free version as well. So you can have a play by dropping any of these on your footage to create some different effects. Now, the two new ones, we've got this comic book, which has this, again, quite funky looking comic book style effect. We can change the image scaling, the angle, the texture, the wobble, and the colors. And there's also a flying flag effect, which adds kind of like realistic cloth kind of effect. You can change the wind strength, the bump scale, the offset for the twisting, the rotation, all that sort of cool stuff. So if you're going for a flag style effect, there's a new effect for you to have a play with. So there you go. They're the new edit page titles, transitions, generators, and effects that are available for everyone in Davinci Resolve 19. Big thanks to MotionVFX for sponsoring this video. As mentioned, if you want to have a look at their full range of plugins for Davinci Resolve, click on the link down in the description below. Thanks for watching. Take it easy. I'll see you next time.